Initiating system 1.
Welcome back, Cyber Realmers. Seeker back here with another video. First of all, though, I want to let you know some things that has been brought up to my attention. For example, the way that I do my videos. Some people don't find them engaging, is what I've been told, because I seem to be all over the place. But the reason for that is that I don't personally like writing scripts because they feel fake. So I usually tend to go right off the back with whatever comes into my mind. And sometimes in the middle of that, I tend to forget certain things that I say. And that's where you hear the whole, or, you know, I tend to repeat myself sometimes. But a lot of times that's because I want to emphasize the point by hitting the dead horse, I guess, right? You know, another thing I want to bring up is also, you know, I have a Discord. It's in the description. It's in the bio. If you guys can subscribe, like, dislike, and comment, I would really appreciate it. Some feedback work as well, as long as the feedback is constructive, right? But keep in mind also, and this is not to be a dick or anything, that, you know, this is my channel and I'm going to run it the way that I see fit. And that's not to disrespect anyone or anything like that. That's just me being honest, in the most respectful way that I can be. But I don't mind constructive criticism. Anyways, to the video. Today's video, we're going to be talking about how Mortal Kombat can fix their story mode, right? I want to go into what I would do essentially if I were given MK, right? If I were given Mortal Kombat and I was basically told, here's some money, what will you do with this story mode? And here's a few ideas that I got, because I want to be able to get a story mode that essentially does not have to mostly be what you would consider CGI storytelling, which can be really, really irritating. And basically it limits what you can do with a story, especially when you're trying to put characters together and etc. Right? So I made a bullet point list of things that I would do. So if you hear me take a quick pause, is because, you know, I'm reading the bullet list that I created and whatnot, right? So the first thing that I would bring back is conquest mode. So what does this do? Well, instead of wasting a ton of money on useless cinematics, I would instead bring back conquest mode. Similar to that of Mortal Kombat Deception, if you guys played that. If you haven't, I suggest checking that out. Or Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Two of my favorite story modes, right? Another point, and the reason I want to do that, right, before I go to the next point, is because basically instead of wasting tons of money on useless cinematics, you know, which take up too much time and essentially cost too much, you're basically telling a deeper story with things that I will get into soon, and, you know, having to put less money into it, right? So I'll go to my second point. Have some cinematics, but only in the important stuff for the main story. For example, all the main story stuff, with some exceptions here and there, would have certain cinematic sequences, but it wouldn't be like crazy cinematics like MK1. You know what I mean? Because again, doing story modes like that caught more of the quality of the story that you're trying to tell, because you're paying so much money and putting it into all these high definition graphics for cinematics, you know, the scenes. So you're basically like Mortal Kombat 1 is basically a movie, a CGI movie, essentially what you're watching. And that not only does that cost a lot, I'll repeat again, but it also damages what you can do to tell a story, right? Bullet point number 3. Have a balance of text, story that you can read, narrated story, and small cinematics. Basically what I want to say with that is, essentially, if you played Mortal Kombat Deceptions and Armageddon or MMOs in general, you usually go around and you find hidden things, secrets. You know, you do quests for the main story, or you do side quests that, you know, can fill in that gap. Essentially what you're doing is you're giving the player story, but you can allow them to either read it in certain cases, you know, because you find secret notes, or, you know, you talk to a secret character, or you find a character, they'll tell you some story, you know, and then you'll have some cinematics that will also tell story, you know, to make the player engaged in said story mode, right? I guess that explains what I'm trying to say. So story could be found by doing, like I said, side quests, looking for secrets that reveal more story. And this can be done in a few ways besides the previous points. So a player can interact through stories, through missions, so they can play the events, and it can become immersive. I'm sorry. That already speaks for itself. This kind of story mode allows for more deep stories to be told, as well as allow the player to experience the story. Basically, you can bring the seasons that we get from Mortal Kombat 1, you know, like they are in invasion mode, but make season chapters so you can play based on story. This means, right, one can just keep building and building without having to constantly having to create a new game. This is a side of live services that could work if done correctly. So essentially, how do I explain it? So instead, you know how every time we play a season of Invasion, we have to do all these stupid things just to get to the boss, which is boring? Well, this is more built on story chapters, where you can take your created character, your main roster character, or whatever character they decide to create as the main story character, like they did with the Crypt in Mortal Kombat 11, if I remember correctly. And then you can explore, you can do missions, and etc., and quests that will essentially tell you more story than what you're usually being able to be told with cinematic CGI movie like animations, right? For example, in Conquest mode, you can play as either your own creation, their own created character, or a mainline character from the MK universe, right? Like your main roster. To tell a story in different perspectives, or just what the character has seen or been through, you know, so you can tell not just the main story, but you can also tell the perspective of the character, what they went through, You can flesh out the character more. You can flesh out the story more because you could just keep adding and adding with all these different elements, which I made a couple points ago. Right? And basically, you can also tell the situations happening all at once as well. You know, that's basically brings potential to tons of story, like I said. The crypt, as another point, you can bring back the crypt in a more unique way. Instead of it being a separate game mode, which I think is kind of stupid to have a separate game mode, you know, to unlock items in the sense of the crypt. You can bring back the crypt as a part of each map, right? So, in other words, you will bring back realms, right? Chaos realm, order realm, nether realm, outworld, Edenia maybe, depending on what the story you're trying to tell, or the universe, earth realm. For example, right? One map like Earth Realm could have a graveyard, which is that realm's crypt to unlock things. For example, if you go to Earth Realm, you have to go to like a graveyard section and, you know, get enough points to unlock, to go up to the tombs and break them and unlock certain items for story and mainly just online Mortal Kombat fighting, right? Excuse me. Like Combat League, for example, or Quick Play, Loco Mode, and etc. You know what I mean? The Nether Realm would have its own, right? And then, you know, according to whatever realm, you can do different things. Like Earth will have a graveyard, maybe. The Nether Realm has a place where like you can break statues, demonic statues or whatever. Order Realm will have its own thing, and etc. I think, and you can correct me in the comments, that either in Deception or in Armageddon, there was something similar to that. It wasn't the crypt, but it was more like you can unlock things through story mode that would unlock through, you know, to the main game, like costumes and etc. Similar things like breaking items and stuff. Something similar, but it would be the crypt, right? Another point, which I already gave, is bring back all the realms and making the game open world as a conquest mode. That's already a given, but I wanted to emphasize that. Essentially, you can go around exploring an open world map where you can choose to go to different realms or different parts of those realms and do different things, right? Another point was you can have players see other players, right, around the game, allowing for people to interact by fights, which will remain in 2D battles. And what I mean by 2D battles, I mean that side-scrolling, you know, 2D fighting style, right? It's technically called 2.5D, but you get what I'm trying to say. Essentially what that would be is essentially if you see another player and you guys want to fight it off or challenge each other while you're doing conquest mode, if you decide to add a PvP element to it, or like a meetup place where every players can meet up and see each other throughout the game or whatever, that's where you do it. Or you could do what Fighter Z does, where you can go into an online mode or an offline mode. So the offline mode is just you interacting with everything, so no one can bug you. But if you put online mode, then you'll start seeing players all over the world, you know, fighting, walking around, going to shops, facing enemies. But you don't want to do it 100% like an MMO, right? Because I don't like the weird feeling it gives off. I like the whole fighting style of Deception, or rather Mortal Kombat Armageddon, when you go around fighting random bad guys on the map. But on the side of fighting other players, it would still be the regular side-scrolling Mortal Kombat fighting 2D fighting game. But you have to like challenge each other. It's like how Tekken has that little mode where you can play as an avatar and go around, but instead of playing as an avatar, you play as your character, and then you can just challenge each other and stuff like that. Something similar to that, but it's an open world, right? Another realm can figure out how to do all that bullshit. Let's see. You can have them. I would also add, as another point, you can have them join up and give co-op missions, which would make the missions harder. Either more difficult enemies, more enemies to fight, and a harder boss, which the Titan battle system could work here as well when you're doing bosses together, when you want to do co-op. And I only say co-op because you know, if you can bring back a proper tag team system, that could really work, like Mortal Kombat 9, where like you and a friend would stinking go online, right? And essentially you guys pick a character, and if your friend has his own life bar, you have your own life bar. So if your friend dies or decides to switch with you, you can switch when he dies or when he decides to switch with you, and you'll take the turn, and vice versa, right? Something like that. And I'm going to be speaking more into that, right? Because speaking of which, you can have a few kinds of battles similar to Mortal Kombat Armageddon. You can open world fight enemies in the sense of like how in Mortal Kombat Armageddon, you can go around beating up random bad guys, and you can fight like mini bosses or whatever, but like in some sort of like Shaolin monks type of way, because I do feel like they should bring that aspect of Shaolin monks into the conquest mode, where like you run around fighting each other and etc., or fighting the bad guys. Hold on, I lost myself here. You can 2D fight as well, which is basically your normal Mortal Kombat side-scrolling version of fighting, like an MK1. But you can do that fighting importing characters as well. So you don't always have to fight them in the Shaolin monks kind of scenario. You can switch about and create different instances where you have to fight in the 2D plane or in the Shaolin monks 3D kind of fighting, right? Using a sort of tag system where each player, like I said, has their own health would work, because if one player dies, then the next can take over and fight the boss or whatever, right? Already made that point. By the way, I wanted to get back to a point, right? You can also bring individual characters into seasons that you can play from their certain perspective, which I think I already said, right? In the conquest mode, this allows characters to shine by bringing their origins and their parts in the story, allowing for not only deeper storytelling, but filling out blanks of what those characters were doing and what their missions were. I know I said that before, but I wanted, to bring that point again. Another point, you can bring back the MKX faction system. I loved it to a certain point, but I also hated it. You can also allow players to face each other in online matches or PvE, or co-op, and even PvE, so that their factions can get points and etc. And after some time, you announce the winners and give them those faction exclusive gears, costumes, etc. Right? So basically what you want to do is you want to create an incentive where people can go face to face with different factions like Lin Kuei, Shirai Ryu, the Dark Brotherhood, the Red Dragon, the Black Dragon, and then you give specific pieces exclusively for those factions that people can unlock, right? And then after some time, like they did in MKX, you can ascend. I don't remember how long it was. I think it was a month maybe or something like that, a couple months, something like that. You can announce which faction won, you know, that season, which will be great. It will be a great incentive for people to want to play the game and do extra challenges. And because you still want MK to be a fighting game, right? But these are things that are simply for story mode that allow a player to unlock things for story and the main second 2D online and local and private matches, like I said earlier. You can bring back even the towers placed, you know, the towers that were placed in MK1 in one of those mesas, I guess. And you can also put them on sections of the maps, like in the realms, like you can get certain ones while you traverse in an open world, but you can mostly get them in specific areas. That way, you know, people know where to go when they want to go and play most of those towers. You can have them update and etc. with loot and other things as well. Okay, I already said that. I would also bring back gear customization, but I mean a good gear customization, not a shitty and lazy one, a good one. You can bring that for story mode, right? And you can do that for fan created characters or a main cast character. But I will go deeper on that on another video based on character customization if I ever remember to make one. And my final point, create in-game maps that change depending on how the person progressed or during events. So like, for example, let's say the Brotherhood of Shadows came to Outworld, destroyed the village, right? But that map you won't see change until, you know, you get to the progression of that story. And no one else is going to see that until they get to that progression as well. But there are certain events that can change maps that everyone can see because it's an event. So everyone's going to have to do that event. You know, you can play with that. You know what I mean? It can change. Like I said, it can change while, let's say you're doing a certain chapter in the story for conquest mode. And again, some bad guys attack, right? So you see a destroyed village, you see smoke coming out of nowhere, you see dead bodies and etc. And maybe you can talk to see if someone's alive. Maybe some of the bodies can give you coins. Maybe you'll find some loot inside in those dead bodies and etc. Right? Another point is you can bring back the fatality system from Armageddon. When you're fighting random dudes, right? You just go bum bum bum, right? And you punch them, you kick them, they start getting dizzy, and it says finish him. You press whatever little button, and it does a specific little attack, and it does a fatality. Maybe you get more coins out of that. Maybe for some characters, you need to do fatalities because you need their body parts to unlock a certain, you know, gate or something like that. Like I said, you want to do it like it's a like if Deception, Armageddon, and Shaolin Monks had a baby. That's how you want to do your story mode. And like I said, that was my final point because I can't remember anything else, and this video has gone long enough, right? So if I do remember anything, I will try to make a part 2, right? But for now, this is all I got. This is how I think Mortal Kombat can fix their story problems. Because with this kind of story mode, you can use different variations of storytelling, whether it's just through text, narration, or cinematic animations. And you can use a bit of the 3 so you can save a lot of money. It's not hard to write text and put it in some note, or have a character narrate some text, right? So yeah, that's all I got. I appreciate you guys for being here. Again, tell me what you think. Subscribe, like, dislike, comment. My Discord is in the description and in my bio. Remember that my Discord has a verification system, and if you don't see it, you have to fix your settings. I don't know why. That's something I found out a couple of weeks ago. And just click the verify button and then you're in. That's it. I do that for security reasons because I don't want people who don't like me or like the things that I do come into the place and start like reporting and falsely reporting and then doing raids and stuff in my servers. So that's why the verification system is there. But again, thank you. I appreciate you guys for taking your time to watch my videos and listen to my opinions. And have a good day, and I'll see you next time. Later.